At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis J.
And I am Priscilla J. Mah-Belloh. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a noonday broadcast on Focus on Liberia, where we delve into transformative dialogues about social justice and the voices leading the charge for social reforms. So, here at noonday, we explore the intersections of politics, culture, and tradition with the leaders who are reshaping our world for the better. A noonday focuses around social justice with emphasis on gender justice to influence policies and contribute to societal shifts. We facilitate conversations that challenge our worldviews and lead to the evolution of a new consciousness of ourselves, our relations to each other, and the world in which we all live. Today, on a new day, we have with us a son of the continent of Africa, Dr. Achebe. I will let him introduce himself, Dr. Chidi Achebe. Go ahead, sir. Welcome on a new day, and it's so good to have you.
Well, thank you so much, Priscilla. It's an honor to be on to speak to our brothers and sisters from Liberia globally. So I'm Chidi Achebe. I'm the third of four children of the late Professor Chinua Achebe and our fabulous matriarch, Professor Christy Achebe, who turns 90 next year by God's grace. Um, I'm a physician, executive. I'm the chairman and CEO of Aid PBC, which is a company that raises money to build hospitals, agricultural projects, renewable energy plants. We also focus on education and telecommunications. We're based here in the States. Our footprint is global, our partners are global, and we are flagship hospital projects this year, um, coming up Q1 2025, God willing, will be in Nairobi, Kenya, and in Nigeria. We're hoping to be in 10 countries in the next 10 years, so we want to be extremely busy. And we're working with some of the best people in the world in terms of partners. In terms of my background, I was educated here in the States. Undergraduate work was at Bard College. I then moved on to Dartmouth Medical School in New Hampshire. And from Dartmouth, I got a master's in public health from Harvard. And then later on in my career, I wish I did it when I was younger, I decided to get an MBA, which actually transformed my own trajectory. So I went to Yale School of Management and got an MBA. And then I've been medical director, CEO of several health facilities, and that's it. That's my. I have the most important things. My dad used to tell me: God, family, everything else. So to God be the glory. I have a wife, beautiful woman. She's a physician at Brigham and Women's Hospital, and we have three boys. So that's exactly all that I can share at this point. And thank you again.
Okay. Uh-uh. Wow. Even though we invited you because we can relate more to your father, but from your rich bio, it sounds like you also have a great legacy to to share with the world in which we share today. And yeah, like you said, we give the glory to the divine, to God Almighty, to whatever whoever is watching or host to be sacred. So I'm glad that we are all part of today's world after we've inherited the legacy we all shared in concerning your father, that we are
Hmm.
part of today's world to also share in your own legacy. I have my copy of Things for the Part to remind the audience
Yes. Hmm.
that
Hmm.
if you went to school in Liberia or in a region like West Africa, you must have gone through this. We did it for WIAC, I think ninth grade in order to get to the 10th grade, and I think 12th grade. Um, so I remember, I think one of our classes, I think it was in junior high, we had this literature teacher who was really good at, he's still alive anyway, was very good at storytelling. And he had us, I mean, the class after him, we wouldn't really be attentive. I just remember they stood out because he just really was a good narrator and he took us along with reading this book to the extent we own the story. So I remember this particular day when we got to the point where Okongo. And Ikemefuna was, I don't know what I'm saying the name right.
Yeah, you're close. Yeah, he came in for that.
Ikemefuna was killed. Oh my God. We cried.
Yes, yes, yeah. It's a
We
very emotional passage.
it
Yeah.
was. We wept and we were so sad in school that day. So after his period, the next period that came, we refused to take this. So, yeah,
Yes, yes, yes. That's the power of
so,
writing. When it's done well, it invokes great emotion. I mean, and that is, I think, when people ask me about our late dad. A lot of people, you're talking about West Africa, globally people have read this book. I mean, this is, he was once asked about the book and he said Things Fall Apart is now more famous than I am, right? It has a life of its own, right?
mhm,
And that more people know the book than know me, and that
mhm,
is probably one of the biggest blessings you can ask from God, that you put down a story of this kind that touches people. So he talks about the South Korean um, school students who felt very, very strongly about Okonkwo's suicide, and he should have stayed and not, given in. And, so it invokes all kinds of emotions in all sorts of places because it's a universal story, right?
it did. It did. It did. Oh my God. People were crying in different. I remember a classmate who I would tease her up to now. She's a full grown woman, you know. She was crying in her language and she was crying.
Mhm,
She came in, the teacher after that, and like, and he's doing his notes. I think he was teaching geography or something, and we all
mhm.
the class is gloomy, we all moody. Nobody's responding to him. He said, "What's wrong with you?" And nobody.
Mhm,
He said, "No one is writing notes."
mhm.
And when he started asking, everybody broke out. He said, "He gave me food that time." Who is he?
Yes, 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 and that's really, yeah, that's fantastic. I'm so
Yeah.
glad.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and you know that the so Wando and I, my sister that's been on your program, were
Yeah.
co-CEOs of Achebe Masterworks, and we can talk about that
Okay.
because we're a company, is a family control company, but we're going to be one of the producers working with the fantastic A24 studio. And you've heard about Idris Elba being Okonkwo. That caused a lot of anxiety in Nigeria. I think it's a fantastic choice personally. Also, David Oyelowo is going to be part of it, and also a producer, and we have all sorts of others. There's Daya Ogunyemi, who is the founder of many cultural and production units, has a deep understanding and of what it takes to bring books of this nature to the small and big screen. So we're really excited. We have a fantastic group of people who are going to, God willing, be able to bring this to uh, to the screen for the globe. So it's very exciting. Um, and my mother, of course, is looked at every line, and she made sure that she everything was up and up. She's really fabulous. I was telling somebody that she's a professor of education, retired, of course, and so every line she read every single line of every contract, so she's really into it. The whole family is excited, and we're looking forward to bringing this fantastic, not just this story, hopefully others, to the screen.
Yeah. Wow, yeah. So yeah, that's a great story about the
Mhm,
enduring impact of things for the part.
mhm,
It's a cultural and literary masterpiece. If you're just joining us, this is the son of our grandfather, our father, Chinwe Achebe. Uh, Dennis laughs at me when he like, why do you? We used to say Chinwe Achebe. How do I say his name like that? I say I got it from Wando.
It's right. Wanda is right. It's Achebe. It actually means Ani Chebe. Ani is land, and before we all became Christians, of course, Ani loomed large as one of the goddesses, right?
Okay.
And so the goddess of the land goddess, we and it's funny because a lot of the creation stories, right, throughout the world, have us coming from the soil. It's very interesting, right? And these are creation stories that are just coincidentally similar, whether they were Native American or African, or you know what I'm saying. And so Ani is the goddess of the land, and it means wait for me. In other words, I want a long life before I return to the soil.
Yeah.
And in Christendom, we know that that God Almighty created us from the soil, right?
Mm,
And so it's very interesting, I think, about the universal connections that bind us as humans. We spend too much time talking about things that make us different and fail to realize things that make us one.
mm,
We are all human beings created by the Almighty. I remember I always tell, as a scientist, I tell somebody that the Genome Project spent billions of dollars trying to understand how different we were. And at the end of all that money, the only thing they found was how similar we
mm.
were,
I know.
right? 99.99 to the ninth place. So all this stuff about blue eyes, blonde hair, this and that is absolute nonsense, right? We are all similar, and we were created by God Almighty. And the variety, Priscilla, is beautiful in my eyes, right? And people want, oh, they're different. No, I think it's fantastic that Priscilla is from Liberia. I'm from Nigeria. We have in Africa alone, we have the Pygmies, we have the Klan people of Kalahari, Zulus, we have the Berbers, we have Somali people. The diversity is incredible. You go to Asia, it's the same thing. Europe, South America, the Native Americans, Europeans, and on and on. So we need to celebrate our similarities. Things fall apart here, tying it into the conversation today, is an example of a story that then holds us together because we have all read the book where, I've met people from Europe. The same story. Why did he have to kill Ikemefuna? Right? So the way it hit you guys, it hit young people in Europe and in Asia and North America. And events of this nature that bring us together, I think, should be cherished.
Yeah. Yeah, his work has shaped, and today his work, that means his work has shaped global perception. Or let me hear you say that. I don't want to put words in your mouth. So, are you saying what I'm hear you saying
Mhm.
is his work has shaped global perceptions of African identity and
Yeah.
global, globally, all of us, our one humanity.
Yes,
in his-
correct. So at the so you're that's absolutely brilliant to point out, Priscilla. So at once, so when Achebe, I'm going to use him as if he's not my dad, and let me speak to him, speak of him as a scholar, right? So when Achebe set out, remember he was 26 years old. I tell young people, this man published Things Fall Apart when he was 28. Published. That means he started writing it at least 2 years before, right? So 26, he starts writing. 28 he publishes the book. He Why did he write it? He said that he felt like in a bookshelf there was a book missing, and that book was the story of Africa, right? So that
Mhm.
was what drove him. He was not naive to say that the story of Africa had not been attempted to be written, because there are thousands of books that preceded Things Fall Apart. But he was aware, he was being pushed by the spirit, I think, to write a seminal book, a seminal novel that would indelibly tell the story of Africa to the globe. That had not been done before. People take this for granted. Prior to Things Fall Apart, there were many, many books, but they had not had the success, the penetration across the globe that this would. So here's a 26-year-old. He puts it down, but at the same time he's writing this story, he wants to correct perceptions, stereotypes. He wants to make sure that that perception of Africa, the savage place with savages and all of that, that we put an end to that. But he also knew that if it was a rosy story, Priscilla, all beautiful, that nobody would believe it, would not be believable. So he went out of his way to put in things that were disturbing about the people that he was also praising, right? Like the throwing away of twins and things. Those are not things that anyone is proud of, but they were happening at the time.
Yeah.
So because he made an attempt to tell, and therefore literary scholars call this an authentic narrative, right? So
Mm.
if I say, once upon a time, Priscilla lived in,
Arizona.
Liberia, and everything was fantastic, and she had no problems. That would be Nobody will believe that story. It's
Mm.
not believable. But if you begin to write a story and make sure the good, the bad, the ugly, everything is there, then it really resonates. And so he achieved everything you pointed out. He achieved telling that authentic African story that's not belittling or condescending, right? That celebrates Africa's great traditions and culture, but at the same time also talks about the weaknesses of some of the society. He talks about, I mean, now we talk about the me movement, but Achebe was there before the me movement. Okonkwo represents a certain amount of toxic masculinity. So it tells you how far this man was in terms of his thinking. Right? He
Fact.
did not like that aspect of the African tradition, the overbearing patriarchy,
Mhm.
and he put it in a character so that people would understand that this is not something that's ideal, and that it had its weaknesses. And yet, at the same time, he celebrated the same masculinity. So, what he achieved, I think, and why it's a masterpiece, is that what they call the balance of stories, right? Ability to tell the African narrative without making it too rosy, and at the same time not buying into that story of the backward savage, right? Celebrating human beings, and this is why young people around the world can read it, go into a tradition they don't understand, and say, ah, And James Baldwin, the great American story novelist, said when he read Things Fall Apart, his reaction was, Okonkwo was my grandfather, right?
Mm.
So again, see somebody who is African American, disconnected from the African continent by the history of slavery,
Mm.
400 years later, is seeing resemblance of a character in an African novel that
Mm.
represents somebody 2 generations removed from himself. That, for me, Priscilla, is the essence of great literature. It's not easy to achieve. And that's why at the end of it, I tell people, Chinua Achebe was the son of a catechist priest, and he was touched by God, and that's his talent. and it keeps all of us humble and knowing where that glory came from. So I think that's where I'll stop for now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, oh, seriously. And with that, I just want to add to, I want to call on our audience, if you're young or if you just didn't happen to go to school in West Africa. I don't know what it was a requirement for schools around the globe. Like Dr. Achebe shared about this Asian person who said, who owned a story, and then this African American. So I really don't know how whether people just decide to go and get the book because they heard about it.
Hmm.
This book now is becoming or has become a television series, and it's going to be in theater. I want to encourage you, whatever form or way you missed out on this, go and get a copy. I have this copy now from Liberia. I came to the US and got it because my son didn't have the privilege to go to junior high school in Liberia. He went to middle school here in the US and high school and he in college, but I had to make him read it because I had to get it of uh, uh, um Amazon years ago, or
Yes.
yeah, a
Hmm.
few years ago. So I just happened to find out that now it has gotten on this level on the global scene with the kind of actors that Achebe name, you know, playing a role in it. So we
Hmm.
still continue to spread the word, get a copy for yourself, check out the story. It's going to resonate with you. Dr. Achebe, I saw you posted on your LinkedIn profile.
Hmm.
I think you highlighted how African American intellectuals have uh, received this work. So it's not just an individual that you share about that.
Hmm. Yes. No. No. I think what. Let's remind people that things fall apart now is there was a study that looked at the 1,000 most prescribed books in U.S. colleges, right?
Mm,
And Things Fall Apart was in the top 50. I think it was number 24, right? So at this point, this book has really become American in many ways. The Americans, uh, if you go by the sales of books, of his books, the American audience is the largest audience in the world now for his books.
mm,
And I want to tie that into the contribution of African Americans and white Americans who supported him,
mm,
um, because when he first came to the States, he came in the '60s. He came on a Rockefeller Foundation fellowship. He
okay.
toured and he met Ellison. He met a number of civil rights leaders and writers. He wanted to meet James Baldwin, but James Baldwin at the time was in Paris. And then he returned after the Civil War in Nigeria in the 1970s with us. This is how we ended up in the States in 1972 and settled in Amherst, Mass, and moved to Connecticut. Went back to Nigeria with us again. And that's why we all speak fluent Igbo. That was a gift, and we became really African because I think if he hadn't taken us back, we would be complete Americans, right?
Mm,
And then we came back as a family in the '80s again, and he settled in New York, ended up at Brown University, etc. All throughout this time, he made incredible connections with Americans of all colors, African Americans playing an incredible role, white Americans as well, others, Hispanics, etc., who embraced his work and made sure that the work was prescribed in universities.
okay.
And then you notice has now been picked up extensively in high schools, and people like Janetta Cole, people like that I need to Michael Thelwell. Just give me a second to name a few people, and people like Esther Terry, um, others who just made sure that this is a man's whose work needed to resonate, right? And so people say, and I remind young people that God uses other people to bless you, right? And so having these friends, Suedos, I need to throw in Nadine Gordimer, some white people, some people don't think I'm all, these are friends as well who were like, this man is a genius. We've got to make sure his book resonates.
Mm,
And so we're grateful very, very much. Thank God first, but to all these human beings who also supported him and his work, we're deeply grateful as a family.
that's good. That's good. All right. So I thought then I saw this post on your LinkedIn, and I thought it was I could join in online, but then I realized later that it was in person. Where
Yes,
so you had the fourth Chinua Achebe Leadership in Africa Forum
for
at
yes, at
Yale
Yale.
University
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
2 weeks ago. So now that it's been embraced at this
Mm-hmm.
level, sounds like in the diaspora, and I know that in the classrooms, this book is a requirement. But is there any other steps? Do you think what other steps can we take to ensure such cross-cultural appreciation extends to new generation of African writers?
Yes, yes, yes. I think that there there are two things. Let's remind everybody that even while he was alive, he did something that people forget because they focus on his own work and on his own success. But he started with Alan Hill and Jim Curry, who's still alive in Great Britain, with Heinemann educational books. They started the African Writers series. So you talk about Ngugi and Flora Wampa, Bessie Head, Aikwe Ama, on and on. He was the first editor that started a series that made sure other African writers who are now giants on their own, on their own, were published, right? And he was the first editor of the first 100 titles, right? And made sure that the great Ngugi, who's a fabulous person, tells the story about how he was a young student and that he was at the Makerere conference. And he ran up to him and slapped his manuscript onto his chest and said, "Please, sir, read this book." And my dad was like, "Who's this young man?" And took the book, read it in his hotel room, sent it to London, and said, "This guy is a true talent. You've got to publish it." And Ngugi is now one of the giants of African literature. So, so I tell this story because people forget. They forget his role in the support of other people. So here we are. We're talking about how he's been supported by others, right?
Hmm.
And how God has blessed him immensely. For human beings, we need to always remember that, as far as I'm concerned, one of our seminal objectives as human beings is should be that if we're successful, even if we're not successful, that we serve other people, help other people to God's glory.
Hmm.
We tend to have a lot of people who are influential, have money, whatever, and all they do is accumulate that money so other people will be jealous and say, you know, and that for me is not that's not why you're blessed. You're blessed with that to help other people, to uplift them. So I think if we can change ourselves to be individuals who serve others, I think we would improve the world. I think that's my perspective.
Yeah, I agree
No,
with.
sorry. You talked about the younger people. So yeah, so that what we need to do is have the younger people be able to then um, use this success that he has had to propel their own writings, encourage more writers. And what we'll do as we do these forums is to have one or two forums that will focus just on young people, young writers, young intellectuals,
Hmm.
because Africa is chock full of brilliant young people. So I just want to make sure they know that that's part of, even at Yale, the one we did just 2 weeks ago, the fourth Chino Achebe Leadership Forum, we had an intergenerational forum just on young people and a few older people. And we're going to be doing this as a consistent recurrent theme where we focus on young people who are just incredibly bright and talented.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm glad you added that because that was my next question. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now that this again, man, correct me if I'm wrong. So with all the level of work that you are doing, sounds to me like in the diaspora is being represented.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking about, okay, African diaspora writers,
Mm-hmm.
um, while we trying to push them into mainstream publishing,
Mm-hmm.
what are other alliances that we can foster in modern creative spaces for underrepresented communities? To get
Yes.
to step into the global leader conversations, especially
No,
on continent.
no, that's brilliant. I'm smiling because one of the people I'm working with now, I'm actually I just finished my novel, my own novel,
Okay.
and I'm trying to get that published. I'm working with a publisher, and she's centered out of the Caribbean. I chose her because she has a very strong Africanist um, uh, background and vision. And so, and by the time she comes out with what she's working on, it's going to be quite incredible. I think I can't speak to her because I think it'll be inappropriate for me to be talking about her own work and what she's doing, but I can at least mention that there's such a person out there, right? And that when she's ready, she will be able to open up a platform for young Black writers to be able to be seen and studied and published. So
Okay.
there's that going on. That's just one example, and there are others. On the African continent, we haven't talked about the number of up and coming publishing units who have been doing some good work. And one of the things that is difficult, as you know, is as much as we talk about how many people have read it on the continent as things fall apart, we have not succeeded in really building a robust reading culture in Africa, right? And the internet age has made that even more of a challenge. I mean, it's hard for me. What my wife and I just so you know, that's even an internal issue. My wife and I have made kind of an agreement that one of the major things we'll do as presents for our children is give them books, right? They want this game, that game, and we're like, no, go and read. If you read, we'll get you the game, right? So it's kind of a carrot stick kind of thing, right? But at the same time, young people are not reading. So I saw a young person. I asked them, "Have you read Pride and Prejudice?" And they said, "What?" Right? And I said, it's a Jane Austen novel. It's very simple to read, but the story is universal and very powerful. So she goes and reads it, and she says, "How on earth did I not know about this?" So we're losing this tradition. We need to rebuild it, and I think getting somebody like yourself to make sure that not just Liberians but other Africans kind of try and get their children and their families to read again as we did when we were growing up. That will help us.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Especially with the fact that with this whole internet thing, technology made
Mhm.
it more challenging. Um,
Yes.
yeah, I know I had to start incentivizing, after I realized, my son was becoming a teenager. Even
Hmm.
even from Liberia, they had a
Hmm.
time that you have to no noise in the house from this hour
Yes.
to this hour is
Hmm.
is your reading time.
Yes.
I had this I had this kid who always, Mommy, I won't go use the restroom. He
Yeah.
just sits still for an hour.
Yes. Yeah.
I had a home of like four boys.
Mm.
Yeah, we would do that. But then when it came to the point where it was just my son and I here, and then I realized he had all this other distraction now because he's exposed to all the different technologies. So I started incentivizing it. I gave him, based on the volume of the book, maybe $10
Mm-hmm.
or $15. And I know everyone can afford it, but that was
Yes.
a way of getting him to read. Uh,
Yes.
then, because if you want something on Amazon, I'll be like, no, you got to go and read, and then you
Yes.
your money. Uh,
Yes.
because I wouldn't pay him for choice, but at least I would
Yes.
do that. So
Yes.
then
Yes.
he started, yeah. So that how he continued, I was able to keep him with the, to keep the reading culture uh,
Mm-hmm.
growing. So when he goes broke, then he will come back on my bookshelf and be like, "Mom, can I?" I say, "You already read that," because I'll make him do a
Yes.
summary.
Mhm.
He will
Yes.
summarize the book and then send it, and I have most of the summary on my Google Doc because that was
Mm-hmm.
the way I would, accept that he actually read it.
Mm.
So yeah, so he will have to summarize and tell me the key takeaway. So then when he looking for money now, he will come. Okay, but you're not getting new books. I said, what do you want? You read all of those books. Yeah,
Yes.
when
Mm.
he started earning money on his own, he was like
Yes.
16, 17, 18. Now I can get him to say, read that book and I'll pay you because now he's
Yes.
earning
He
his
has
own.
his own money. Yes. Mm.
So I started doing it with cooking. He doesn't like to cook. So on his
Mm.
days to cook, I'll be like, I'll cook for you these two
Mm.
days and then you can read this and this and this.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, right. Finding an incentive plan or strategy, I think, would help get
Mm,
our young people to read more. That's useful. And
mm,
even myself, I tend to also tell myself, you're not reading as much as you should. Um, and so I force myself to pick up a book, especially when I'm traveling. I always take a novel on the plane
mm,
and read it until you fall asleep, and by the time you do two or three trips, you've read a novel, right?
mm.
And it's really quite useful. It keeps your mind sharp, and keeps Alzheimer's away, right? So even people our age, we have to tell people reading actually is good to keep you sharp, right? And my mother, I mentioned her many times. She reads all the time. She's 90. She's sharp as a tack.
Oh, wow.
No, and we thank God for it. But it's very important to keep that brain of yours, sharp and active and vital.
Yeah. 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 So yeah, that's just different ways to encourage young people. For me, especially, I want someone to talk about a book with that I read.
Mm-hmm.
I have to pay that guy. I don't do the dishes this weekend. I will do the dishes if he can read this volume. Sometimes I get the feedback. I didn't like that book. I just read it
Mm-hmm.
because you wanted me to
What meant? Yeah, absolutely.
have
And you
my
don't have to.
yeah,
I mean, you don't always have to like the book.
yeah.
Each time you write, like a book. That's great. But each time you don't like a book, it's still good because you've taken in a story.
Mm,
You've kind of learned something you may not have learned had you not read it. There are many book clubs that are doing well throughout the diaspora,
okay.
and on the continent. They need to be larger. Um, and there are other things that we can do. Book festivals, are important as well, but all these things need funding, right?
They do.
And so
Definitely
we
do.
also need patrons who are willing to provide the funding so that these things go on. And so, on many levels, so there's a financial level where we need to get funders to back them. There's
Mm,
the activism level where we need people like yourself to encourage people. Then there are people who need to be the players who actually do the book, the book festivals, who have the book clubs,
mm,
who make sure that people actually read. And booksellers are not doing well on the African continent, right? And so there are many ways that the government at that level can actually subsidize some
mm.
of these people who are trying to get our people to read. But when you have politicians who themselves, I'm going to go political for 2 seconds. You have
Go
politicians who don't read, right? So how can they make that a priority, right? So we can. So I'm not looking to the politicians for anything really. It's a private sector that needs to support this and keep the culture of reading going. The West reads like crazy. They have all these fancy book awards to keep it going. They're not stupid. They know that this is how you keep a population healthy and democracy,
Mhm.
well informed. People need to be literate and to read.
They do. They do. Yeah. Okay. So you share with us your leadership role in in the organization. So how has your father literary legacy shaped your personal and professional journey? And I know it has because you your father's son. Um,
Hmm.
so Doctor, so Wando and share with us how she's her father and mother's daughter.
Yeah.
How has your father legacy shaped your personal and
Hmm.
professional journey, or what lesson from his work that resonate most with you in your leadership at AI
Okay.
AIDEP?
AIDE. Yeah. Um, I'm a physician. My
Yeah.
dad, you may not know this, Priscilla, but um, he was a very good student in high school. He ended up being, I think he was the second. He had the second best results in the Cambridge exam, right, in
Mm,
West Africa. That's a big deal.
yeah.
And he ended up getting a scholarship to study medicine, right?
Mm,
So, but then he disliked, medicine. In Africa, you come out and they want you to be a lawyer, a doctor. There are like four or five things they want you to do, right? And so they wanted him to go and be a physician, and he did not like it. So he lost his bursary. He had his full scholarship, full ride to be go and study medicine because
mm,
of his stellar performance. And he lost it because he said, "No, I'm changing." So he did. He majored in history, religion, English, and philosophy. In those days, he had all these multi-area kind of courses, which the world is better off because he did not become a doctor, right? I when he was alive, I used to tease him, but you can imagine that he was my biggest cheerleader when I was in med school, right?
mm, mm,
So you can imagine that he really wanted me to be a physician because that's something he had started on his own journey, right? And I remember having trouble in med school. This is halfway through, and he had this way of messing with your mind. I said the man was such a genius. I would complain and complain and complain. He'll listen and he'll say, you've already graduated and you need to now start worrying about what you're going to do with your life. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm halfway through, right? But you walk away and you're like, yeah, I'm going to graduate. I'm going to do really fine, right? The man completely got into your mind. He's already planted that you're all set. I don't know what you're talking about, right? Um, and that would make you then, really work hard to fulfill that. And when we were growing up, because my parents were academics, they did not attend undergraduate graduation. A lot, I tell people, because my grandfather was a college graduate in 1904, which is very unique in Africa, anywhere in the world actually. Thank God. By the time we were in college, nobody showed up for undergraduate,
graduate.
ceremonies, and people couldn't understand that. And I said, you have to understand that they were at that time also working psychologically to push you. So they're saying to you, good, fine, congratulations, but they won't show up. And then I remember doing a master's. He wasn't there. Oops. Okay. And what did that do? It drove me to work even harder. But guess what? At my medical school graduation, guess who was in the front row? And he was like this, giving me the power salute, right? So this is a man who, like, he messed with your mind. He was so good at this,
What she said,
right?
go
And because
psychologist.
and Priscilla, as a child, all you want to do is please your parents, right? So you're working harder and harder. But what he's doing is he's pushing you higher and higher, right? They know what they were doing. And later on, my mom, who we were teasing the other day, we said, Mommy, you guys did this to us on purpose. She said, Yes, we did. She says that in their bedroom, they were high fiving each other, but they'll come out and pretend, oh, no big deal. Go and do a doctorate, right? And that's why you have Wanda, who's a professor, PhD. My oldest brother, Ike, is a PhD from Cambridge. My oldest sister, our oldest sibling, has a doctorate in education from Columbia. So none of this, I think, if you understand, very African, by the way. I know that a lot of Africans will be able to relate to the fact that there's these really almost impossible standards your parents set for you, but they are pushing you to get to the highest possible level. So this is a man, in terms of how he influenced me. He was my biggest cheerleader to be a physician.
Okay.
My mother's brother was a doctor, Uncle Sam. He's passed now, beautiful man. He's a man who took care of the poor, and they used to pay him with yam. He did
Wow.
because they didn't have the money, right? So he
Yeah.
was OBGYN. So they'll make soup for him or yam or whatever. Of course, he never ate it, but the whole point was, fine, I'll take care of you. Good man, good Christian man. So he became my second biggest mentor, Uncle Sam. And AIDE was set up here in the States to raise money, like I said, to build hospitals in Africa, renewable plants, etc. And we have fantastic partners. I can't speak until we launch. We're hoping to do that next year, but we'll be hopefully. I'm not someone who likes the news, so you'll hear about AIDE, but not from me. It'll be from our partners. I just want to get the work done. So we really want to use all those blessings that God has given us and to be able to help other people on the continent and build really fantastic facilities for them. So that's how he's been. And he was alive. Daddy was alive when I set up this company, and he would always call me out of the blue Sunday evening. How's it going? And I'll tell him, and he'll say, consider contacting this person. He would use some of his connections to help us. So, and my mother the same. So we're really grateful. We have a huge team now in Kenya, like I said, in Nigeria. We're going to be many parts of West Africa and East, hopefully, in the next decade or so. And we have partners from the Middle East, from North America, from Europe, and from Asia. And so and of course, throughout Africa. So this is now a global effort. And hopefully you'll hear about some of our projects next year. So in summary, that's how he's been able to kind of encourage me and guide me in this profession.
Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you for sharing that. But I agree with you. They push you like that. I had
Mhm.
this uncle and I used to be started getting annoyed with him. Yeah, 90 on your
Mhm.
average, and then you'd be like, and I take the report card because he said when you get high average, he will give you this, and then you
Yeah.
take in a period and be like, at 90, you jumping around for 100, 90.
Exactly.
And then
They
at
tell you.
6, and then he says you jumping around for friends and getting, yeah, 98 and be like, so as, and then when I got to teenage, I stopped taking my
Yeah.
report card. The same day longer. Yeah. I got
Yeah.
98. You say at 98, you jumping around for your friends. And,
That's a very good thing they did. That African strategy helped a lot, and I appreciate them for that. Yeah.
yeah. So Miata, Miss Miata Stella, let me read a few comments, please.
Hmm.
Miss Miata Stella Heron say, when we were growing up, we read a lot. We did not have funding. I think when you were talking about, we had a variety of friends in the neighborhood and we just shared books amongst
Hmm.
ourselves. You read and you pass it to me and I read it on.
Hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, if Dr. Achebe wants to clarify that, I think he's talking about like programs, initiatives like these to bring people together because of life has evolved and a different distraction or incentives, or I don't know. Yeah, but there are a lot of things that now can afford or the way you're used to live and then you gather.
Yes.
Because I remember me too, that's how I used to read. Um,
Mm-hmm.
my father wouldn't let me play outside and have very much playtime, partly due to the environment, the
Mm-hmm.
community that I grew up in. So the way I had friends to play with was I read and then I told them the story.
Mm-hmm.
They will come around,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when just no game to play. So they come around, sit around, and then I'm the storyteller in the midst.
Yeah.
And I when we were growing up, there will always be people who, okay, yeah, so hi in there. Like, no, and I'm taking my time to go
Time.
through.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
people
Yes.
always want to go to the end. There was,
Yes.
but yeah. So yeah, we did that in a cycle where
Mm-hmm.
um, I told stories other than that. And then when it was time, my father would tell everyone to go home. She has to go and study. And then
Yes.
watch my friends playing. I sit, spying through the window. But
Yeah.
yeah, so we did those things. But we're talking about now that life has changed,
Yeah.
how
Mm-hmm.
we incentivize this kind of gathering. I think that's why he was talking about the funding aspect. Um,
Mm.
do you want to?
Yes, I think that we're now on in the internet age, and a lot of young people. There are all these programs that they have that I won't call them book clubs anymore, because what they do is they provide PDF versions of books that are that they can get, and they share it amongst themselves, and they read it on their phones, their tablet, if they have them. The beautiful thing about that is, whether you have a phone or not, if there's one phone amongst five people, they can share that phone and that PDF amongst all five, right? And then I remember there was a tablet in a village, one tablet amongst like a group of 20, and there was one young lady who would always hold on to the tablet longer than the others, and they would complain, "It's my turn for the tablet," right? And just the fact that they had become innovative in the way that they were doing things, for me, was fantastic. So, in other words, even with the challenges of funding, people are finding a way to share information. Another way they do this is they get that PDF and they print it, and then they share it in a pseudo copy version. The publishing houses have a role here. To one of the things we're trying to do, Wanda may not be happy, but I'll just share this so people know that the Achebe family, one of the things we're trying to do is to set up a fund, as well as a prize for young writers. Okay. And because people need money. I mean, at the end of the day, in order to get things done, you need funding. So we're trying to do it in our own way, set things up so that we can encourage people to continue that art of writing, as well as to encourage the reading culture. The other thing that some governors who are enlightened are doing, I'll give a shout out to the Governor Peter Obi, who was the governor of Anambra State. And what he did when my dad passed was um, he went to the private sector, raised some money. I think there were banks, and then he distributed a special edition of my dad's novels to all high school students, and they were there were tens of thousands of them, right? And he
Mm,
gave them this new book that the local publisher had provided, and they were all tested on it after like 6 months or something, right? To make sure that they read it. But the point of the matter is, yes, we say private sector, but a serious governor, a serious, elected official can also work with financial institutions to set up prizes, to buy books, to distribute to young people, to
mm,
encourage them to read, to have competitions around essays. So we can do that from the private sector, but the government can also do their part as well. The locals, my auntie, who was a chief nursing officer at a number of states, educated in England, had her own little library, and she would lend these classics out to the young people, with instructions. Don't write in them. Make sure they don't fold them. Things like, because she wanted the copies, and they would really treat their books well, share it
Mm,
amongst themselves, and return it to her. So she was their like street library. They would go and borrow these classics that were expensive for most kids. So there are many ways that people can help out and encourage book reading culture.
yeah, yeah, I agree. You don't want to borrow book from me though, because I've become nasty over time. When I was younger, then my father would make sure I covered them so there was no scratch. But my own books, may I
Mm.
talk back to the I read everywhere, like you can see line in it, things for the
Yes.
I would be like, yes. And
Yeah.
then when someone
Yes.
borrows my book, they'll
Hmm.
be like, it's so interesting. All you're
Mm.
writing, I'm reading. I said, damn, I don't like to get my book up for that.
Yes.
But yeah, she said she understood what you were saying. She said, oh, I do understand what he said. I just referring to our society that want to do nothing without funding.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes. You can find innovative ways yourself,
Mm,
even without funding, to get people to read and to share books.
mm,
Yes, absolutely.
yeah. Life has changed, but not for everyone. In the internet age, even with books, our children don't read.
Yes, that's something that we need to fight. So, like I said, and it shows up in, if you notice, the internet age. I call it the Twitter age. People don't, when they write to you, they grammar is horrible, the syntax, right? Because they are not reading and they're not writing, and so I think is dumbing down our society, not just here in the States, I think globally, right? So we need to fight that. And the only way to do that is to get people to read constantly and to, I constantly correct my kids, when they speak, no, this is not grammatically correct. I know people say it, but it's not, you know what I'm saying? So
Mm,
this is something that we as parents have to also look into and encourage. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So she's still making this. She's just agreeing with you. Say my point exactly. More about creative ways without means, but encouragement, enlightenment.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for participating. We're going to be winding down now so that we can
Sure.
let Shebe go. Let's talk about the you already mentioned it in passing, but the adaptation of things for the part into TV
Yeah.
series.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I read different takes on, not maybe not all of them, but I read a lot of different takes on, especially some of them the uproar about why Idris. Yeah, and I also read his take when he was encouraging, you say, my fellow Africans. I'm African.
Yeah.
I was born. I'm in Britain, but I'm African.
Yes.
And
Yes.
he said he has similar experience when he was chosen to play Nelson
Mandela.
Mandela in the Long Walk to Freedom, which I was
Yes.
sometimes
Mm.
as. So yeah, how did you handle that, or how did your family handle that when?
No, I think we're absolutely in. So we're 100,000 billion% in support of Idris.
Yeah,
You
and
have to understand.
they will
You
have
yeah,
much.
you.
It will.
I understand the Nigerian perspective. See, the Nigerians think, rightfully so, that this is their story, right? Therefore, they feel it should have been somebody from, probably Nigeria in particular, an Igbo man. And I get that. I completely understand that. And we appreciate our people. They don't joke with Daddy or his work. They don't. They are like, "Are you kidding me?" So we get that. However, one thing we have to remind them is one of Dad's greatest blessings is what I call the transcendence, right? He's at once an Igbo man, a Nigerian, an African, a world person.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I'm saying? So you cannot, therefore, um, deconstruct this man, and so that you can turn him into some sort of villager. He's that. He is a villager,
Yeah.
but he's also an Igbo person, a
Mm-hmm.
Nigerian, a West African, an African, a global figure. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
when you choose, when you're looking into who should best convey the story, the people who are going to put up the money um, are very clear about what they want.
Mm-hmm.
They want a name that most people understand and appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be that person to be able to carry the story and make profits for them,
Mm-hmm.
and they want the series to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
So, in Idris, we have all the requirements met fantastically.
Mm-hmm.
Idris, by the way, is from he has Sierra Leonean and Ghanaian ancestry, even though he's British.
British. Yeah.
And he's what people don't understand is Idris's middle name is actually Igbo.
Mm.
Oh yeah,
Mm.
because there are lots of Saro. You know, we say there are Saro Nigerians, right? Who are
Mm.
Yoruba. There are Saro Nigerians who are Igbo, because the tragic slave trade dropped a number of them after abolition, who were taken from Nigeria onto the coast of Freetown. This is an opportunity to educate our people about our own history. And so you have Sierra Leoneans with names like Eluemono, which is Igbo for I have arrived at my home, right? These
Mm-hmm.
are people who are taken from Igbo land, and when the abolitionists blockaded the Atlantic slave trade, not all successful, they forced a lot of um, ships to go back to Africa, and
Mm.
they offloaded. They didn't care where these people were from. They just
No.
offloaded, in Freetown. And so, um, so Idris has an Igbo middle name, which tells you that our decision. You see, um, I just think that God is inspiring all of this. So here you have Idris, who has an Igbo middle name. You have David Oyelowo, by the way, yes, British, but he's Yoruba. You have ourselves, we're Igbo, and then you have Daya Ogunyemi, who a lot of Igbo people were like, all these Yoruba people. Well, that's all. We don't spend our time. We are talking about excellence and quality. And if we're going to be petty and all we talk about is Igbo this, Igbo that, then we won't get anything done. And
Mm-mm.
by the way, coincidentally, and that's not why they were chosen, Oyelowo's mother is Igbo. And guess what? Dayo Gunyemi's mother is Igbo too. And we didn't sit around saying we want people whose mothers were Igbo. It just happened that when you're choosing good and excellent people, and these corollaries exist, then we celebrate them. So Idris is supported by us 1 billion%. He's
Mm.
going to do a fantastic job. This
Mhm.
is an African story, a Nigerian story, a West African story, an Igbo story. It's a global story. It's a
Mhm.
story for all of us. So that's it. That's our position. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. Like, even if you took an African,
Mm.
let's say maybe not necessarily a Nigerian were going to be like, no, why don't you take a Nigerian? And if
Yes.
you took a Nigerian who was Yoruba, Igbo people
Yes.
are going to say, no, you should.
Yes. Exactly.
So yeah, like you said, then we just we becoming small, we shrink
Yes.
ourselves.
Yes. Yes.
We have the habit of owning things. It can be interesting when, for instance, sometimes when you watch like a prominent Liberian, and then
Mm.
you see the African comments. Yeah,
Yes.
daughter of the soil. Yes,
Yes.
my African sister. Then you see a Liberian come from. No, she's Liberian or he's Liberian.
Yes,
Yeah, people
yes,
want to own what is good.
yes. No, we understand that.
So
But
that's
we're also looking for the best people to make this successful.
Yeah, I
So,
agree with you. But
yeah,
I'm just saying it's just our tendency to want to own for ourselves. Only
exactly.
is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
But just like you were saying, at the end of the day, we're all from Africa. Um,
Hmm.
and she writes it in this Zainab read it in this one that we are all from Africa. To
Yes.
be inviting her on. early
Yes.
January. But yeah, so she talks about Zainab and Badawi talks about how we're all from Africa at the end of the day.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, I read Idris take on the whole thing. He said, I'm Sierra Leonean and I'm
Hmm.
Ghanaian, even though
Hmm.
I'm British.
Yes.
I hope my brothers and sisters on the continent will accept me for playing this role because it's our story. It's
He's
African.
going to do a fantastic job. I know that in my bones. And Yellow is going to do a fantastic job as well. And remember, the other thing, I'm just going to drop this for the Nigerians, the Ghanaians, the Liberians, the Sierra Leoneans, the Kenyans, the South Africans, anybody from Africa, people who are African American and British, they have not started, filling at least 40 something roles. They've only filled the major roles. So they will be a chance for people who are from Nigeria, from Liberia, from Sierra Leone, from anywhere but you have to be excellent. And they will take their time and choose a cast that people will be in awe of. They made these initial, like everything else. You make the initial announcement about the key players, and then the casting begins. So as this is rolled out, and they'll start working on it very quickly, you will see names like okay. So there's a lot going on. Obiarika, Obala, the priestess. There's so many characters. The European missionaries. That there are many people that they will have to bring into bear, and we want to use this opportunity to also bring in the diaspora too. Brazil, there's a big African Brazilian population, African Americans, Afro Caribbeans, the Africans, the Afro European. There are all sorts of people. There are white characters as well. So we're excited. I think this is going to be, God willing, a global effort.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah. So in a nutshell, if you were being asked and
Mm,
I think you repeated those, but
mm,
just succinctly, what will you say is the global and social impact, global social and advocacy impact of things for the part
mhm.
um becoming adapted as a TV series with all these multiple different actors from
Yeah.
different
Well,
spheres.
the hope is that we take a seminal archetypal novel that it was set in Africa, written by Chinua Achebe, that's been accepted as a literary masterpiece, and adapt it in a very respectful way with some of the best actors in the world, so that Africa's story is conveyed in a way that's respectful, that uplifts our people,
Mm,
that engenders a deep understanding of the universality of the African experience, and that pulls people from all aspects and all parts of the world together to witness an event on TV, pretty much like Roots did when everybody watched it. We
yeah,
want a global event where people are able to watch this story and learn from it, and also understand how similar these stories. This is a human story, and so we wanted to teach, we wanted to encourage, we wanted to pull people together. And we also, most importantly, we want to make sure we recast the story of Africa so that people understand that we're glorious people. We're the oldest people in the world, you know. I mean, people need to understand this. And that the racist stereotypes, I don't even want to call them stereotypes because some stereotypes are true. I'm just saying that some of the racist narratives need to be destroyed once and for all, so that people can see that that this story represents the true African experience, with humility, with dignity, and hopefully will have a great and important impact in terms of education globally. So there are many objectives, as you can see, but we think we have the best people to make this happen. Working with A24, Idris, Yelowo, Dayo Gunyemi, ourselves, for Achebe Masterworks, and a slew of other people behind the scenes, producers. We're very excited and very grateful.
Yeah, I know you were hesitating to go political, but how can you say, yeah, how can you say your family legacy? Because it's not only your father now, all of you are involved, have
Hmm.
expanded it and kept it alive. And I mean, it has gone beyond your family.
Hmm.
It's all of us legacy to some extent. I heard a lady interviewing Wando before, and then Wando was explaining how her dad, your father passing affected her, and this lady is saying, "It's you know that Christianese, that Christian speak. It is well. He's all of us that as well." And I'm like, "Woman, shut up. He's all of us that, but he's her dad." So
Yes, yeah.
yeah, so yeah, it's our legacy, but from your perspective, from your family perspective, how do you think your father legacy and leadership or your family leadership should inform governance on the
Governance. Yeah.
continent?
Well, I tell people the short answer is go and read his book called The Trouble with Nigeria. Anytime he mentions Nigeria, just put Africa and you're done, right?
Mm.
Everything he mentioned, this small book, it's I tell people it's a two
Name
and a
it.
half
What
it's a
is it?
two it's called The Trouble with Nigeria. The Trouble
Oh,
with Nigeria. It's a everything that man touched was became a masterpiece. He was really a genius, right? So at the height of Nigerian politics in 1983, he sat down and he wrote a classic treatise. Nigerians know this very well, called The Trouble with Nigeria, in
mm,
which he places the blame for a lot of Africa's problems on leadership. Like I said, it's a 2.5 hour read. This is the kind of thing you pick up and you're traveling and you finish by the time you get there. It talks about leadership, nepotism, corruption, indiscipline, all those things. Now, why do I want that as a foundation? Because a lot of what we're doing now through the legacy programs, the Chino Achebe Leadership Forum, right, are programs that essentially use the trouble with Nigeria as a foundation, right? And so we want to talk about leadership issues in Africa. We don't
mm,
want to talk about corruption, which is a problem that is everywhere on the continent. We want to talk about indiscipline. We want to talk about tribalism, right? We want to talk about nepotism. And so what I'm saying to you is that there are multiple topics that we're going to use. Now, in terms of what he was also interested in, he didn't write a lot about it. Like told you how he was interested in healthcare because he wanted to be a doctor. He was also a businessman. People forget the man was a businessman. I mean, he was a board of directors of many, 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 many companies. So a lot of people forget that. So he was especially in the literary world, right? He was on the board of Heinemann Educational Books. So the people that published him, he said, "Wait a minute, I need to own shares in this stuff," right? So he was a smart businessman, and which is one of the reasons why I got an MBA and I'm also in business in healthcare. But so we're going to be talking about business because if you don't have a robust financial foundation on the continent, you're not able to join in the global financial sectors, and you're not able to prosper the way the other parts of the world have. Africa is always, I've talked about how we are raising money to build hospitals. It's taken us years, and half of that time was just spent educating people about Africa because Africa's presence is not there. You go to a lot of these big conferences of funders, they
mm,
want to come to Africa, but they don't know anything about the continent. And
mm,
they think there's nothing there for them to make money. And then you spend just 30 minutes and like, whoa, right? And I think it's important for us to also provide, if you like, conferences and colloquia where we can discuss opportunities for young people
Mm.
to be able to tap into the global financial markets,
Yeah.
because that's how we can, you know, grow and develop the continent as well.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So if there is anything that there is a lot, I could keep you. I don't want to keep you on here. So yeah, what is it? What is your last or your parting statement or anything you want to tell the audience? Leave with us. Since say when I say what is the legacy? She was answering to your last question. She said, "Look, everything that goes wrong in Liberian politics." We always say things fall apart. So
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
legacy. Yeah, so
Yeah.
look at the book, The Trouble with Nigeria. Then you'll
Hmm.
be able to resolve if things the things that are falling apart in Liberia and in
Yes.
part of the continent.
Yes, that's right. So read that book. So the only thing I would suggest, not just suggest, I would encourage, and I would actually want to
Leave with us.
ask
Mhm.
our your listeners and all people of African descent is to support the TV series that's coming out,
Okay.
and to encourage young people to read his work. He was one writer that truly wanted to make sure that young people had a greater and better future. And so, one way for them to do that is to pick up his books, understand what his vision is, and how he had spelt out a path for our people to once and for all get up and stand up our rights straight and confident, right? So support us as we try to get this series out, get the people to watch it, read his novels, read his books. So that's my parting statement. Thank you.
Thank you for spending your Sunday, part of your
Mhm.
Sunday with us, Dr. Shebe.
Thank you. It was an honor.
Of course, thank you. Okay, people. So, folks, this is it. Thank you for staying with us. We were talking about things for the part. If you came on late, please go back and watch it from the beginning. We're talking about the legacy of the great man, Dr. Chinwe Achebe. Many books he's wrote. This one had a great impact in most of us growing up, and is now is having that on a global scene. We heard his son, Dr. Achebe, tell us about, people in other part in Asia owning the story, and it's not an African story alone now. And white Europeans involved as well at the level of now putting it into a TV series and all the support that they've gotten. So this is a global story. Be proud to be a part of this. Please own it. Check out the book if you never had that book before. Check it out. And as we all look forward to this series, and again, it is our story, but it is the world story. So don't get mad about why are they taking people from the diaspora. We are all Africans. We are all one people of the world. Originally, we all came from Africa. Scholars,
That's right.
anthropologists are now making that clear to us, and scholars are now telling us that there are books out there saying that. So check them out. We all came from Africa originally. Dr. Ashebe mentioned it. He said we are the first people. People need to realize that. Okay.
Yes.
So remember, on a new day, we say change begins with a conversation. So the kind of conversation is to have us revisiting the what we knew about ourselves for change in our mindset and attitude or a little shift. So that's why we are having this conversation and others that we always have on this platform. Let's continue the dialogue, elevate our voices, and actively participate in shaping a world where social justice isn't only an aspiration, but a reality. Join us next time on A New Day Conversations as we continue to explore and advocate for social reform. Let make every day a new day for progress. Thank you so much for joining
Thank
us,
you.
Shebe, and thank you for being a change and for sharing your day with us.
Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye, sir.
We are Labira. Labira is our home. Labira people. Ije yubete awiwa. Labira oh. Ije yubete awiwa. Labira mi labira.